You are listening to Unplugged, a podcast from one of America's leading electric cooperatives. Now here's your host, Jacob Puckett.
Welcome back to Unplugged. I'm here with Director of Operations Mike Kincaid today, and this is the final part of our Helene series. Mike, how do you feel to be the distinguished guest for the final part of this series?
Well, I'm just glad it's over.
I think we're all glad it's over, and this has been a Jinx podcast. I won't go into all the reasons, but for some reason, this podcast was destined to never hit the air. Every time you and I have tried to record this thing, it's failed. Like, for some reason, something's popped up. So I'm glad we could get here today and do this. So for folks who don't know, Mike is our Director of Operations. Now, during a storm, he's also the storm manager. He is the guy that's behind the scenes, making everything happen and getting everybody where they need to go, and really plays a major role during any outage event. So Helene, obviously, he was a very large part of this, and that's why I want to get him on the podcast to talk about this a little bit, because he could shed more light on what happened in the field, but also to what goes on behind the scenes that you don't see during a storm. So Mike, without further ado, do you want to walk me through your day one, from the time you woke up to, well, I guess you said you were in there super earlier the night before, to the time your head finally hit the pillow at the end of that first day?
Actually, we started about 8 o'clock on Thursday night, and we had several crews in that worked through the night. We remained around 400 to 500 members out throughout the night. We'd had a circuit or two to go out, and we would get that back on, which is our larger three-phase lines coming straight out of the distribution substations. But however we did, we had about half our crews in through Thursday night, and we was holding, like I said, around 400 to 500 members out pretty much all night long. Early in the morning, around 5, our numbers began to climb, and so we got on the telephone calling for additional crews. We called TEMA, which is our Tar Heel Electric Membership Association. That's who we've got our mutual aid contracts through for other co-ops and for mutual aid assistance. We were calling Pike electrical contractors. We were getting additional right-of-way crews in. And so we were starting to really ramp up our manpower for the morning coming into the storm.
And looking back on possibly that first day, or maybe it was even before this, what was like the moment you said, okay, we're in for a historic event. This isn't just a normal outage event. This is going to be a historic event.
Well, about between 9 and 9:30 that morning, things really started to decline. We started losing a lot of our circuits. We started losing some of our transmission feeds. Our outage numbers started climbing significantly. Our outage totals, as far as members, had really jumped. I mean, we got up to around 73,000 total for during the storm at the height, and so around 9:30 is when, and we started getting damage reports back in from the field too, from our guys, our line technicians, and they were reporting a lot of broke poles, so we knew we were going to have significant damage, and we were having extensive flooding.
So, Mike, you have the unique perspective here, and I'm trying not to show your age, but you worked Hugo and Helene, both of the big H-name storms that we had in western North Carolina. Your first time with Hugo, though, was you were a line technician, and then now you're managing the storm process for Blue Ridge Energy's Director of Operations through Helene. So I know the perspective might be a little bit different, but I'm curious to see how you would compare and contrast the damage and just the impact on our service territory, since they were pretty similar as far as impacts.
During Hugo, I believe we got a lot more wind in Hugo. We had more wind damage, and it was not quite as widespread as it was with Helene. Helene, we had significant flooding, we had landslides, and we had wind damage. These areas that you can look at the timber and see where it's laid sections of timber down. Hugo, we had flooding, but it was not the same. It wasn't catastrophic as much as what Helene was. Plus, Hugo was widespread, but our mountain districts did not get hit as hard as the Caldwell district did during Hugo. I think back and actually in Watauga district, which is where I was assigned, we worked about a week in Watauga, and then we came to Caldwell to assist with restoration efforts in Caldwell. During Helene, it was widespread. Caldwell finished up a little bit sooner, and we shifted a lot of crews from the Caldwell district to the mountain districts as we progressed during the storm.
So, Mike, you do a lot of things as storm manager in any outage event, but especially a storm like Helene. And I think one of the best parts of this entire podcast series that we've done on Helene is highlight the folks behind the scenes. And you're behind the scenes during these storms, I should say, coordinating these crews, the foreign crews as well, getting these people in here, making sure everything's taken care of. So what are your biggest priorities when we're restoring power during an event like this?
I would say my biggest priorities is safety, providing support to the districts where your line technicians are on the ground, getting additional crews in, making sure that we stay on focus, stay on point of what we're trying to accomplish, trying to do it. You're in the middle of chaos, but you want to make it organized chaos. You want to have a plan, and you want to have a restoration plan, which we practice this every year. We do an emergency response plan that we have in place, and we come together once a year and test on our emergency response plan. So my biggest thing, I think, is being there to provide assistance and support to the crews on the ground, making sure that we have everything in place that we need to be able to do the restoration as fast and safely as we can.
I'm going to ask you a question that we didn't agree to before this. So, but I'm just curious based on your answer. I think, in my view, looking at this from an outside perspective, looking at this, kind of from my realm, I think you're in a super stressful situation, as a storm manager. So how do you stay calm and how do you stay cool during that situation? When I think a lot of people, would honestly struggle with that. I think it would be tough for a lot of people to be in that situation because you're talking like almost 3-week grind of just, hammering away to try to get the power back on. It's not easy. Everything's devastated. And you're managing at one point, up to 600 personnel in the field. So how did you stay calm?
Well, I'm very fortunate. I have a very good team that works with me. I have very good coworkers. And, we all work with each other very well here. And that really does help about staying calm. It is chaos, but however, we take it one step at a time. We tried to think through it. We tried to support each other, and it's really what we've been trying to do. We've been through a lot of storms over the years, and you learn as you go. And you've already hinted about my age and how long I've been here. So I've seen quite a few storms. And I've had a lot of good teachers over the years from my predecessors that taught me staying calm, focus on what you got at hand, and just continue to move forward. It's a marathon, and we've got to stay with it to make sure we get the restoration done.
Well, Director of Operations Mike Kincaid, everybody, I thought that was a good interview and a good way to wrap up this entire podcast series on Helene. We'll be back with something new pretty soon. Got some ideas that we could work through and maybe bring a new podcast series to you here pretty quick. But Mike, thanks for being here. Thank you for shedding some light on both Hugo and Helene. Sorry I had to call you out on your age there.
Well, this was probably more stressful than the storm.
No, don't tell me
in front
that.
of the camera.
We appreciate it, man. Thank you for being on. And until next time, we'll see y'all then.